The following video is targeted towards a general audience, an audience consisting of people of any age. Both kids and adults can enjoy the video. Welcome guys to another commentary video regarding the Legend of Kyuranger Adaptation of Time. From the time I am writing this, Adaptation of Time had reached 2,500 views, and I had posted a poll asking if you guys wanted me to do a commentary video or a mini-movie. And most of you guys voted for a commentary, and then when I posted a poll on what commentary you guys wanted me to make, the winning vote was on story changes. These are the slight changes that were made to the original plot of Ocarina of Time, so I won't be mentioning about what characters were changed out. I'll go over that in a future video. Before we begin, there is a chance that there may be one or two changes that I will miss during this, so if you spot a difference between the game and the movie that I didn't mention, do let me know in the comments, but please read the description of the video first, because if I do discover something that I missed, I will be sure to write in the description of the video, and then possibly mention it in a follow-up video. So please read the description first before you point out anything I forgot, because there is a chance that if you don't read the description first and you do tell me about something that I forgot, you're very likely telling me something that I already know. That all out of the way, let's get started. So the first story change was where the story begins. In the original Ocarina of Time, we begin our story in Link's house, where Link lives. However, Link's house is not where Adaptation of Time begins. Instead, it begins at the Orion battleship, where Sho Rampo tells the Kyurangers about how they are doomed to never get adapted into Power Rangers. Quite a shame he didn't see that they were actually doomed to get an improper adaptation. I will mention that I did make a video called Cosmic Fury of Time, where the Dino Fury Rangers do begin at Link's house, and if anybody is wondering if I'll continue with that series, I think I might start over with that series since I made that one before the full Cosmic Fury suits were revealed. We only had the gold, green, and blue suits unveiled at the time. The rest of the suits were not unveiled until after the video was posted. Although a question that people are going to ask me would be if I am going to have figures of the Cosmic Fury Rangers. As of the recording of this video, I haven't seen any announcement that we are going to be getting figures of the Cosmic Fury Rangers, nor have I seen them already available for purchase. So if I do end up making a full series that adapts Adaptation of Time into Cosmic Fury, it will most likely just be the Zord battles, and I just use images of the Rangers in their cockpits without using any actual physical figures. And as for how I'll pull the final battle off when it is basically the Cosmic Zords fighting the Dino Fury Zords, two sets of Zords used by the same Ranger team in Power Rangers, I'm thinking that the Dino Fury Zords in this instance could be under Lord Zedd's control. But now back to Adaptation of Time. Now I did have there be some skips in the dungeons to make the movie go by faster and to have production of the movie go by quicker. The first difference inside the Deku Tree is that in the original, Link needed to jump from the top floor down to break the web on the first floor in order to get into the basement. Whereas in Adaptation of Time, the Kyurangers jump from that high, but also have a lit torch, burning the web away instead of breaking it. I think I was playing Ninpai's Adventure at the time I filmed this part of the movie, as in that ROM hack, using a torch is how you get into the basement area. In the original, anytime you beat a dungeon, an NPC gives you the Spiritual Stone or the Medallion, whereas in Adaptation of Time, the Rangers just get their prize out of nowhere when the dungeon is finished. Although they still appear in the Chamber of Sages whenever they beat a temple. They just don't meet with a sage there, or any substitute characters. Another change in the story is that after Link leaves Kokiri Forest, Saria gives him the fairy Ocarina, and later on in the game, he gets the Ocarina of Time. But in Adaptation of Time, there is no ocarina, and any requirement with the ocarina is no longer needed, as the Rangers can get through these puzzles without playing an ocarina. In the original Ocarina of Time, when Link is heading to Hyrule Castle, Malon gives him a weird egg, and overnight, the egg hatches into a cuckoo, aka a chicken, to which Link uses to wake up Talon, who then runs off, and then Link moves these blocks in order to get into the opening on the side of the castle to get in. There is a door on the outside, but Link does not go through it. However, in Adaptation of Time, Talon does not make an appearance at this point, and neither does Malon. And instead of going through the moat area as Link did in the original, the Kyurangers instead just go through the door. Getting into Dodongo's cavern, I decided to have the switch that you need to press down to open the door leading to the big staircase be blocked off by a gate. In the original Ocarina of Time, Link couldn't get the switch as he was too short to reach it, but adult Link can reach this same switch with ease. And since the Kyurangers are mostly the same height as adult Link, I thought that would have been too easy, so I had it be blocked off by a gate. In Zora's Domain, you originally would need to play the Zora diving minigame in order to get the silver scale, which is then needed to dive deeper under the water at Lake Hylia to get the bottle with Ruto's letter, which then needs to be shown to King Zora in order to gain access to Zora Fountain. In Adaptation of Time, however, Hammy finds an empty bottle behind the waterfall, which in the original game held a piece of heart, though this chest wouldn't appear until you lit all the torches in the domain. Now in both versions, the heroes would need to pick up a fish in a bottle. However, in Adaptation of Time, there is no diving minigame, nor do the Kyurangers get any silver scale that lets them dive deeper under the water, and they also do not need to find a letter in the bottle telling them that they need to head inside Jabu Jabu's belly. They already knew they needed to do this from the beginning. And remember this scene from the original game? Well, in Adaptation of Time, Link and Ruto, who are the rulers in this version, just move out of the way with ease, since they aren't as big or as slow as King Zora. Going inside Jabu Jabu's belly, the Rangers do not need to go through the room with the rising water. Ruto was found in the room with the holes in the floor, but Kotaro is found in the room where the dungeon compass was originally found. And in this case, he couldn't leave that room as the red slimy thing was blocking his way. Now, what was Kotaro doing in Jabu Jabu's belly in the first place, you may ask? Well, I may have that be explained in a future mini-movie. The next change in the story would be the point in which the heroes get all 3 spiritual stones. In the original Ocarina of Time, when Link arrives at the castle with all of the spiritual stones, the gate is closed regardless of what time of the day it is until he approaches. Zelda and Impa flee the town on the white horse, with Zelda throwing the ocarina into the moat, and then Link encounters Ganondorf. However, in Adaptation of Time, the Kyurangers arrive at Castletown to head to the Temple of Time without encountering the Ryu soldiers beforehand. Sho and Kotaro encounter the Ryu soldiers as they are leaving the town, while the rest of the Rangers head to the Temple of Time. Sho and Kotaro don't join with the rest of the Rangers since they know they are special Rangers who are introduced later, so they wouldn't be needed for the early portion of their adaptation. But it turns out they were not needed at all, nor did the first 9 Rangers. Why, Hasbro, why? As for what happens after the hero opens the door of time and the villain gets the Triforce in the original, Link was sealed away for 7 years, and all throughout the game, he travels back and forth between past and future. In Adaptation of Time, however, the Kyurangers are only sealed away for 7 months. The reason I made this change was because in the story, Dino Fury hadn't been announced yet, and by the time it is announced, the Kyurangers are already in the Sacred Realm. Plus, I thought it made sense to decrease the passage of time in this version, and there is no time traveling whatsoever. In the Forest Temple, this is the room where the boss chest would be found originally, but in Adaptation of Time, I had it be relocated to here. Heading on to Goron City, in the original game, when Adult Link arrives at Goron City, all of the Gorons are gone, with the exception of Medi-Goron, Big Goron, the Goron Shopkeeper, and Link of the Gorons. But in Adaptation of Time, none of the Gorons are missing, and the Rangers do not need to rescue them from the temple. One Goron does appear in the temple, but only for the sake of opening up the gate leading to the shortcut to get from the 2nd floor to the 3rd floor. Another skit that I made for the movie. Heading off to Zora's domain, in both versions the hero would find the domain to be frozen. However, in the original game, King Zora is shown to be frozen in red ice.
I was frozen today!
And he can be thawed out with blue fire. In Adaptation of Time, however, not even King Link or Queen Ruto are found here, and instead, they can be found at the fishing pond later on during the Water Temple mission. Though they do not take part in the Water Temple. They are just by the fishing hole where Spada, Balance, and Kotaro go, while Lucky, Stinger, Naga, Hammy, and Raptor head to the Water Temple. Another difference is that when Link arrives at Zora's domain as an adult, there are floating ice cubes in the water, but the water is still swimmable. Due to the limitations of NoClip.website as well as Gary's mod, I had to improvise by making it so that the water at Zora Fountain was completely frozen, so the Kyurangers in this case have to walk on the completely frozen water. Getting into the ice cavern, in the original game, Link needs to collect these silver rupees in order to open this door right up here, where he can find blue fire for the first time. And then, when he cuts back to this room with the spinning blade, he can use the blue fire to melt this red ice wall to get into this other room, where there is even more blue fire. However, in Adaptation of Time, this second room with the blue fire is actually open from the beginning, and the Kyurangers just go into that room, while the original first room is skipped out entirely. And speaking of the Water Temple, when Link entered the Water Temple in the original game, it was filled up with water all the way up. But in Adaptation of Time, the Kyurangers arrive to find that there is no water. Also, in the original game, you pretty much go back and forth lowering and raising the water level of the temple, and revisit multiple rooms in the temple. If you played this game yourself, you know exactly how much of a pain it is. I, however, have the long shot and the boss key swap places in the movie, and the Kyurangers go to where the boss key was found originally to get the long shot. Then they make the water level raise up until they have it full all the way. Then they go fight Dark Link, and after he's been dealt with, they then get the boss key where the long shot originally was found. So the Water Temple wasn't that hard for the Kyurangers, I suppose. Just a shame that their hard work didn't pay off. As for getting to the bottom of the well in the original game, you needed to learn the Song of Storms from Guru Guru when you arrived there as an adult. Then once you've beaten the Forest Temple and unlock the ability to go back and forth through time, you arrive back as young Link and play the Song of Storms to open up the bottom of the well. Although the well is already drained when you arrive there as an adult, the entrance to the well is blocked off, so you need to do this as young Link. Not the Kyurangers, however. The well is already drained, and there is nothing stopping them from entering the well, just like there was nothing stopping Hasbro from adapting their season properly. If only Hasbro knew and or cared about that fact. The bottom of the well isn't that much different. Sir Urgi is found here, but this was just my way of adding him into the movie, as I thought this was the best place for him. Although maybe if I knew what ranger statuses he, Sho, and Kotaro were at the time of making this, perhaps he would have joined the team in the Forest Temple, and then Sho and Kotaro would either have joined during the Child Link dungeons, or would have already been active members of the team. Don't you just love it when you don't know these things? And getting into the Shadow Temple, in order to get there in the original game, you needed to first beat the Forest, Fire, and Water Temple, then enter Kakariko Village, which triggers the Nocturne of Shadow cutscene. Then you can use the Nocturne of Shadow to enter the Shadow Temple. But since the Kyurangers are not using an ocarina, this is how I had them be able to enter the temple. They first go into the grave where the Sun Song could be found in the original. In this room, they meet with the pumpkin judges from the Halloween episodes of Dino Supercharge and Super Ninja Steel. They give the Kyurangers a quiz, and after they pass, they are teleported to the entrance of the Shadow Temple. And then for the boss of the Shadow Temple, in the original game, there is this room with invisible platforms that you need to get across before you enter the door with the boss. However, in Adaptation of Time, the boss door is now placed one room ahead. And this room now is the room where the Kyurangers need to drop down to start the boss fight. I think I did this as it would have been too difficult to add in the invisible platforms the Kyurangers would need to come across, and probably to save on production and running time. Heading to Gerudo Valley, when you arrive there as Adult Link, the bridge is broken. Once you save all of the Carpenters, the bridge is then fixed. However, when the Kyurangers got there, the bridge was already fixed. And then getting to the Thieves' hideout, in the original game, the Carpenters were locked up by the Gerudo because they are men, and the Gerudo only welcome women. While the Cat Dancer girls locked the Lupin Rangers up because they thought that the Lupin Rangers were after their treasure, and assumed that the Kyurangers are there for the same reason. But they ended up letting the Lupin Rangers keep that treasure anyway once the Kyurangers helped to free them. Also, while the Carpenters were all locked up in individual cells, the Lupin Rangers are all found within the same cell. Well, it's a good thing that the Cat Dancer girls decided to let the Lupin Rangers go. I just wonder if they are planning on letting me go, or possibly just keeping me here. Oh boy. As for the Spirit Temple, the temple in the original game was divided into two sections, one for Child Link and one for Adult Link. You would need to get the Silver Gauntlets in the Child Link section of the temple in order to move this huge block in the Adult section. Once you arrive back into the room with the giant statue when you become Adult Link, you can open up this door and push a bunch of these blocks until you make your way to an elevator that you can use to get from the first room into the room with the giant statue, pretty much creating a shortcut so you wouldn't have to go the long way round when you returned here as an adult, just in case you need to leave the temple for any reason while you are here as Adult Link. In Adaptation of Time, however, the Kyurangers actually activate this shortcut when they first enter the temple. So this is another time save. Also, in the room where Link needs to stun one of the Armos in order to open the door leading to the Iron Knuckle that will lead him to the Mirror Shield, in Adaptation of Time, this is changed to the Rangers just moving a golden cat statue onto the block. I also decided to have the Psycho Kyutama be used instead of the Mirror Shield, with Shishi Red Orion acting like the Mirror Shield instead. The chest also is found in the room with the Iron Knuckle in the movie, unlike in the original game where the Mirror Shield chest was located outside. In the original game, when Link shined his Mirror Shield at the face of the statue inside the temple, the face dissolves completely, and it reveals the boss door. In Adaptation of Time, however, the Cat Dancer statue instead opens its mouth, and the Kyurangers walk into the mouth of the statue to get to the boss door. And as for meeting up with the witch's brainwashed victim, In the original game, Link met with Nabooru when he arrived at the temple as a child, and then she gets captured by the witches after Link gets the silver gauntlets before he is able to give them to her as he promised. And then after Link fights this last Iron Knuckle, the armor comes off, revealing Nabooru. An adaptation of Time, Humba Wumpa from the Banjo-Kazooie series is the victim, and the Kyurangers defeating Gaisorg, aka Void Knight, is the first they see of her. Heading to the final boss dungeon, in the original, the bridge leading into Ganon's castle is created by the sages, but since the sages are absent in Adaptation of Time, well, with the exception of Ruto, but she's not a sage in this movie, the medallions the Kyurangers obtained make the bridge instead. Getting into the castle, when Link goes to dispel the shadow barrier, the room beforehand has some platforms that need to appear by lighting a torch in the room, but the platform just stays there for a short time. While in Adaptation of Time, when Champ and Naga arrive in this room, the platform they need to walk on is just invisible. In the room leading to the fire barrier, there are these platforms in the lava where Link needs to collect the silver rupees in order to open the door. However, there are no silver rupee puzzles at all in Adaptation of Time. And the way Spada and Raptor get across the lava, they use the ice arrows to get across. Makes me wonder if somebody is going to try doing this themselves. Spoiler alert, the ice arrows don't work here. This was a change I made for the movie. In the first room leading to the spirit barrier, Link needs to collect the silver rupees, and there is a Beamos and some of those metal spike things in the room. In Adaptation of Time, however, there are these cat statues that they need to move around in order to hold down on switches to open the next door. During the final boss fight, in the original game, Link and Ganondorf just fight within the room where Link finds Ganondorf at the castle, and there is no teleporting that occurs during the fight. Whereas in Adaptation of Time, the Kyurangers and Mew-Soldiers are teleported to different locations in the game, with two Kyurangers fighting one Mew-Soldier, similar to what occurred with the boss fight against Zant in The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And then there is the ending. In the original, Zelda sends Link back to his childhood in order for him to recover his lost time, setting up the child timeline, while Adaptation of Time ends with just the Kyurangers obtaining the Triforce and wishing that their season got adapted into Power Rangers. They probably should have been more specific in how they wanted it adapted, but in all honesty, I didn't even know that what they would do in Cosmic Fury was even a possibility back then. Nobody did. And then, the Kyurangers leave Hyrule to find a new adventure. So those were all of the differences that were made between The Legend of Kyuranger Adaptation of Time and the original Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This video sure took me a while to make, and I have also been working on my fanfiction series Freedom Squadron Liberanger. It is similar to Kyuranger in that there are 9 Rangers at the start of the series, and they gain an additional 2 Rangers later on. I have not unveiled the, in quotation, 6th Ranger of this series yet, since with my Super Animal Squadron fanfiction series, I like to wait until the Sentai series that comes out the same year unveils its 6th Ranger before I unveil the 6th Ranger of my series. So if you're interested in checking out Liberanger, I will leave a link to all of the released chapters so far, as well as all of the images of the characters that I've drawn out so far. For anyone who was disappointed by Cosmic Fury and wanted an adaptation of Kyuranger that actually was like Kyuranger, not reducing it down to just 7 Rangers. Seriously, that was a terrible idea. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again in my next one. Bye for now.